It's a new year, and that means it's time to talk about Contractor Coalition Summit. We have got an extra event this year, so we've got our Monday night meetup at KBiz. That's just a 3-hour deal at the International Builder Show. It's a great place to meet up. At the beginning of May, we are going to be in Denver, Colorado for our first Contractor Coalition meetup. We're going to do a standalone event in the middle of September in Minneapolis. It's a one-day crash course, a much less reduced fee. Tickets are available now if you want. That goal here is it's a significant investment to spend 3-4 days away from your business and your family, plus just the expense of attending the conference. We wanted to create an event that was just a one-day crash course. You can find all those details at contractorcoalitionsummit.com. We also in November have our 3-day tail end of the year, which is going to be in Charlotte. So if you're interested in any of those 4 events, please head to contractorcoalitionsummit.com. DM me for any information or email me, mark@mdwilliamshomes.com. And thanks for tuning in. I was always pursuing this quiet state. And a lot of it is because of my own personality.
Why does that matter to you? Why does it matter to you? I don't want to put words in your mouth, but you love yourself. You love who you are.
Of course.
You don't have an issue with that.
Right.
But you are, because you're so aware, so self-aware, you're chasing the idea of slowing down. Why does that matter to you, though?
Probably because I like to do hard things. Today on the podcast, we had Jude Charles straight out of Atlanta, flew in for this interview, and we're going to do live road mapping. So today's whole episode is really about Mysa Hus from a director's point of view in trying to get out of me things that I didn't really even know that were there. And so it's a pretty deep episode. I mean, 99% of it is focused on Mysa Hus, our spec home here in Cottagewood. And one of the things that Jude really challenged me on is like, what is the why? Like, we know what the what is, we know about all the attributes, but why? And really, we both have a mutual love of storytelling that's going to come up very strongly in this episode. So buckle up, Buttercup. You're going to go deep on this one. Without further ado, here's Jude Charles and Mark Williams diving deep on Mysa Hus. Welcome to Curious River Podcast. I'm Mark Williams, your host. Actually, I'm giving up hosting duties today. I have got Jude Charles from Jude Charles Co. coming in studio. What's up, buddy?
What's up?
We've met a couple years ago. You did a docuseries with Brad Levitt.
Yes.
You've done a number of other ones. And every time I see you, I just keep finding myself gravitating towards you. And you're like, why don't I come up to Minnesota? We're going to do a live road mapping.
Yep.
So you're going to take over this podcast.
Yes.
And I think we just toured Mysa Hus.
Lovely getting an opportunity. You talk about it all the time, so now I get an opportunity
It's
to
like
see.
talking about your kid.
Yeah. So I want to kind of set the tone for where we're going. We're doing road mapping. You've talked about Mysa Hus. It's a brand. It's not just a home that you've created. It's a brand that you've created. And I know that you've seen the docuseries work, and you have always asked me, like, okay, I know I love storytelling, but, like, what would I even do with this if I told a docuseries around it? So normally, when a client thinks about doing a docuseries, the first thing we work on is road mapping. Why? Well, road mapping is about alignment, essentially, right? You know where you want to go. You know where you are now, but how do you get there? How do you use those two things, where you are right now and where you want to go, to get you to where you're going? And so road mapping is that. We create this story around your vision and then document it, right? But we create the plan. It's kind of like when you're building a home. You need the plan before you could ever build the home. You got to know how many rooms is going to be there, how many bathrooms, what do they want, how do they live? Same exact thing with road mapping.
Is it equivalent? I've always wanted to write a book. Both, I don't know what I would say, but there's also part of me that wants to write a fiction book.
Okay.
I like sci-fi fantasy. It's like, I've always wondered, like, do you wireframe out or road map, like, all these characters and all these things, and then you basically create a structure and then fill it in around the story?
Yep.
I've always wondered how, like, writers write. So.
Well, writers usually will create an outline of, like, well, what is this even about? How many characters are going to be in the story? Where are we going to take the story? What's the main plot, right? So that, again, you don't lose yourself as you're 100 pages in. And you don't realize, oh, I'm kind of off track from where I really wanted to go. Same thing with road mapping. Yeah. You talked about Brad Levitt's project. I filmed that for 8 months. And Brad is very much like you. There's a lot of things he has going on. And so without that road mapping piece, we could have filmed a whole lot of content, but not know where this story would go. What did you think? Because I know you've seen Brad's docuseries. What did you think watching it?
I have a unique, it's kind of like watching, I mean, he's not actually my brother, but he's my building brother. Right. I mean, we own a business together. I've gotten to know him very well over the last 4 years. I know a lot of personal things that even didn't show up that really added a lot of depth to what I was watching. I watched it as a fan of our industry. So like my perspective is probably different than a lot of others. I just really enjoyed him expressing himself in a way, and Brad's very open. Like that's the best part about Brad, right? From a character's point of view in a film, like it makes it very easy for him to just talk authentically about, and he's a very gifted speaker as well, but it's really just a stream of consciousness. I mean, he's able to deliver, which makes him a great spokesperson, of course. And then as he weaves his tale, it draws people in. So I found it entertaining, educational, but to me it was more the humanity. I mean, the part that I liked was there's a lot around his kids and his team. And if you know Brad, he has 31 people in his company. When I met him 3 years ago, it was 17. So, I mean, he's almost doubled. And, he's a big team first person. So, like, seeing someone scale and watching them empower their teammates. We just got back from Curious Builder Boot Camp from when we're recording this. It's only been 5 days. Hence my head cold from being in an airplane for a long time. But the point was he brought 5 people on his team. Yeah. That is pretty cool leadership to say that I think this is a lot of value to their personal development as well as my team development. And so I don't know how to articulate better than that, but it just all comes out in that film. And there's more to come. So I'm excited.
There's more to come. But overall, the goal with that was, Brad does a lot of podcasts and he does a lot of speaking, as you mentioned. But there was a piece I felt like that was missing, which was Brad, the human beyond just the builder. So, like, obviously he has a Brad Levitt show and he's always speaking as a Contractor Coalition Summit. But getting to see him as a dad and getting to see, like, the story that we start with is a story about him having the stroke. Right. And like how that affected him and even how he thought differently about his business because of that. Right. It's the human element. Right. He
has his friend and maybe someone who's very open that shares everything, much to my wife's chagrin sometimes, is I don't feel like Brad always shows you all the way the depth to a soul all the time. And I've actually never, this will be the first time he's heard me say this probably, but like, I don't know if that's deliberate, because it could be his personality and that's just totally fine. Right. But as his friend, like I always want to know a little more. Right. I always want a little deeper. And I think the thing that I've enjoyed most about the podcast setting and storytelling is I just like it when people are super real, and some people are very private about it. And there's another gentleman, I won't mention his name because he is very private. And his point being is like, he is happy to have these kinds of conversations. But for him, that is between you and I. And I totally respect that. Yeah. I just want people to be comfortable wherever they're at. And so I felt like that video showed another layer to Brad, to the people that don't know him. And so for that, I was like, okay, this is great.
Yeah. It's another layer that allows you to realize this person is really human, right? And Brad said the same thing, that he's just not sure sometimes, when are you oversharing? And we are both lovers of storytelling. How I categorize it and define storytelling, it's about a very specific moment in time, but the most important piece is the lesson that you learned in that moment in time.
It's like Aesop's fables.
It is, right? So like, I'll give you an example. 2014, I went to a leadership conference, and I've always known leadership was important to me. This leadership conference was in Spokane, Washington. So it's the furthest northwest state. I lived in Florida, for furthest southeast state, right? So northwest, southeast. Well, I had this crazy idea. When you go to a conference, you take in all this information, you're writing notes, but then you go back home and it's like none of that even happened because real life happens at this point. So I had this crazy idea that I would take a Greyhound bus from northwest.
This is awesome. I love
to
this.
Southeast.
This is amazing. Just to download all the things you learned.
Just to download, because again, I knew leadership was important. I was 25 years old at the time. And I'm like, you know what? I need to make sure what I just learned actually digests in my system so that I don't go back home the same. Because again, you go to these conferences, you take it in for 3 days, it's exciting, but then you don't really download it.
That is such a cool mind. What a old soul thing to do at 25.
At 25.
So tell me about that. Like, so how did that go?
It was not the smartest idea. Being on a Greyhound bus for 3 days was miserable. By day 2, we got to Chicago, Illinois. Now, I had my phone off this whole time. We talked off camera about, having our phones off. And again, it's just one of those things that I'm like, I need to not be connected to anything right now. I had my phone off. We get to day 2, we get to Chicago. And I turn my phone back on, and of course I'm flooded with text messages. But there's one text message in particular that sticks out, and it's from my sister. She says, "Call me back, it's urgent." Now, I brace myself because at this point, this is July 2014. At the beginning of the year, my mother had attempted suicide and obviously was still alive. My dad, though, was diagnosed with prostate cancer. So when I get this text message from my sister, it's either mom or dad. So I brace myself. I take a deep breath, and I call her, and she says, "They found my dad unresponsive in the home." Now, I know what that means. They won't tell me because I'm on the road, but that means that he's passed away. I take the first flight from Chicago, Illinois to Fort Lauderdale, Florida, back home. And when I land, my brother comes to pick me up with his daughter, my niece, Ayana. I hug my brother, I don't say a word. I hug my niece, and I don't say a word. But I sit in the back seat with my niece, Ayana. She's 9 years old at the time. I'm 25. I'm staring out the window as we drive to my father's house. And I'm thinking to myself, I feel really lost right now. I'm 25. I'm the youngest of 10 children. So my dad will never get to see me get married, have kids. Never imagined I would even lose him at this point. And Ayana, who's only 9 years old, looks over at me. And she's like, "Uncle, why did Grandpa have to die?" And I just stare at her because I don't know how to answer a 9-year-old, first time going through death. She says it again, "Why did Grandpa have to die?" That question rang in my ear as we were making funeral arrangements, trying to decide what to do with his things. And I got the answer August 9th, 2014, as we went to go lay my father to rest. My family asked me, the youngest of 10, to give my father's eulogy.
How old was the oldest child?
So she's 19 years older than me, so in her 40s, right? Like, I'm not the oldest at all, right? I'm not the oldest male even. But I learned in that moment, going through that leadership wasn't just important. It was leading through difficult moments. Earlier, I told you that my purpose, I figured out early in life, it was at that moment. I figured out that my purpose is to lead and empower entrepreneurs to have relentless courage. Why that's so critical is because I realize entrepreneurs that I work with are coming to me at very critical moments in their life where they need to have a little bit more courage to show up, to tell their story in a different way that allows them to get to that next level. So why did I go down that route? I just told you that whole entire story, right? I told you about a very specific moment in time that I lost my dad. But I told you about the lesson I learned in that moment in time that was so critical for me. It's a very deep story, right? It's a very intimate, vulnerable story. And it's stories like that people think about, well, should I share that? Like, what's the point of me sharing that? For me, the point is, 1, for people to get to know me, but 2, to realize I know my why, I know my purpose. Now, normally, in road mapping, I start with that story. And at the end, I'll say, well, I told you why I know I exist. I told you why I know why I'm here. But you tell me, why did you invest in doing this road mapping session? You're going to spend 3 hours with me going this deep. Why did you decide to bring me in this room? Stories about a very specific moment in time and the lesson you learned in that moment in time. The lesson is what people remember, but the story is what makes it matter. Now, I want to use that to open up with our road mapping session for Mysa Hus. Because I've been listening to you talk about Mysa Hus for a year now.
I'm sorry.
After Contractor Coalition Summit, the last one in Chicago, you sent me a bunch of information on Mysa Hus.
Oh, and we did were you there the day we did the Boundaries Create Freedom?
I did, yeah.
And the Mysa Hus one with Nick Schiffer and I?
Yep. Yeah. I saw the one with Nick Schiffer.
You didn't see the night before I did.
The night before. You have done podcasts on Mysa Hus with Melissa and with the one most recent
Drew
with Drew, right? Yep. You've talked a lot about Mysa Hus, and here's where I really want to challenge you, and I want to know the story behind Mysa Hus beyond the tactical why. I want to know the emotional why. Because you've hinted at it, but you haven't really gone deep into the emotional why of Mysa Hus for you. And it might be, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but it might be because you feel like, oh, that's just too much to share. Because you hint.
That's definitely not. I'll share anything.
But you hint at it, but you don't really go deep into it.
I think a lot of times people don't. I mean, Mysa Hus is interesting. I can tell you the whole story. We can dive into it here in a minute. I think for me, as I know I'm a creative person in certain respects, and not in like I look at someone like a Drew Beeson who can do art. Like I can't do art. I guess I'm a creative thinker because I'm always thinking, like I can't stop thinking of new businesses. I joke that I create 5 businesses between Monday and Wednesday, and then Thursday and Friday I have to tell myself no. And so I'm constantly coming. I like that iteration. I love the dream state. I love forward thinking, and when I get really excited, the easiest person to sell is the guy in the mirror. Nobody can sell that guy like me, and he believes most of the things I tell him, poor guy. And so, but a lot of times I don't know my why. And it's kind of a journey of self-discovery. It's a little bit, honestly, I'm much better at ad-libbing than I am at planning. So if I have to do a podcast with someone or even like ad reading, like I don't have any aspirations to be an actor, but like if I had to memorize a script, I'd be bad. You know who's good at it? Brad Levitt's amazing at memorizing scripts. I'm terrible. But you tell me to talk about anything and leave it open, I mean, I can shoot with Wyatt Earp. I mean, I can go all day long.
Right.
And so, but part of it is I'm sort of discovering how I think about it. I think out loud.
Okay.
And so I don't spend a lot of time in deep meditation. That's why I go to bed in 4 minutes every night. Like I'm out. Like I just don't, that's not actually a challenge for me. And one of the things that we did at boot camp is to have an hour of silent journaling. I did that because that's the hardest thing for me to do.
Wow.
For me to sit still, for me to be quiet with my thoughts. It's not that I don't enjoy it. I just don't know why anyone does it. and so it's more just like, it's way easier for me to have a conversation with somebody. And I've practiced a little bit on the podcast and monologuing, and I can do it. I don't enjoy it nearly as much as I like having a conversation. But back to the why, for me, it's like I sort of enjoy the self-discovery of figuring out my why while I'm talking. One of my dad jokes is I like to know, I like to finish what I'm saying because I want to know what I'm going to say too. Like there literally is no forethought in what I'm going to say, which makes it pure, but also can lead to mistakes too.
Right. How long has it been that you created Mysa Hus? How long has it been? 2 years?
I mean, if I want to get really philosophical, my whole life. But it really started, I mean, the origin story is I haven't done a spec home in 16 years. I did a spec home in 2008, right before the stock market crashed. And I was only 3 years into building. And luckily, I didn't have much to lose because I didn't have much. And so, I mean, I rented out my couch. I slept on the floor. I remember my dad, I've told the story many times. I'll keep this one short because people can go back and listen to it. But my dad was kind of the first person who told me that failure is not a bad word. Like, you know, as soon as that, like, you know, think of a trapeze artist where the net is taken away, where like the fear of failure is gone. That's really when my career took off. And I remember I asked my dad for money, and no one really wants to ask their parents for money because it's uncomfortable. You want to make your business yourself. You think that if you go bankrupt, you're failing. And so for me, I have so much respect for my dad. And someday I hope to be able to do that if my kids ask, because having a kid look up to you and saying no to them when they're in their moment of need, it's got to be a really difficult choice or decision. But anyway, he said famously, no, because I asked him for $30,000 back in 2008. And he said, no, because if you can't fix the problem, the ship's going to sink anyway. So you got to fix the ship. You got to plug the holes. And he said, and then I love this. He goes, what's the worst case scenario? So I'm 25 at the time, 26, whatever. No, 28. And I said, well, I don't know. I guess bankrupt. He goes, and what's so bad about that? And I was like, I don't know. I thought, is that bad? He's like, I don't know. Is it? And he's like, you're gonna sell your house. You'll move home. You'll sleep in the basement. Your mom's going to make you, Swedish pancakes. And I'm like, wow, that sounds pretty good. So anyway, I say that because it's kind of humorous. But I think when we get a perspective like what failure is, the reason I'm bringing it up now, it had been that's the only house in my career I've lost money on. And so fast forward 16 years, I have this lot in Cottagewood, which is just 5 minutes from my office. We had actually had the property sold twice. We won't go into that story. Both of those fell through, and I'm stuck with this beautiful piece of property. I've designed 2 homes for other people on it, and I thought, you know what? What would happen if I entertained this idea of building a spec home? And the reason I'm not good at building a spec home, or what I tell myself why I'm not good, is I do things too nice. And I fall in love with the project. So I lose sight of the marketplace so I can overinvest. And I'm certainly not the first builder to do this, but that's the main reason why I haven't done spec homes in 16 years. But at the same time, after I'm now in my 22nd year of building, like, I'm a really good builder at what we do. We have an amazing team. Like if I'm building your house, Jude, like I will kill it. Like we do such a good job of really getting into you, understanding your story, pulling it into the house. And that's a really crucial piece. But I felt that and this is just for my opinion, there's other builders that do a good job at this, but I didn't want to just build a vanilla house because that's not interesting to me. It's not exciting. Like, I don't want to buy it. Why? I know I can sell something if I'm excited about it. But if I'm not excited about it, I can't fake it. Like, right. I am what my emotions are right there for everybody to see. Mm-hmm. So if I need to be like in love with this house. And so for me, I needed a story. And that's something the Curious Builder taught me. So this is kind of a story that's sort of woven into Mysa Hus. Mm-hmm. And so I sat down. I knew that like branding is really important. I had considered rebranding Mark Williams Custom Homes because it's just a mouthful. Nobody tells you when you're 23, don't name the company after yourself. I'm like, oh, great. It doesn't fit on signs. It doesn't fit on anything. Maybe a semi-trailer. And so, except I'm not in trucking. So when I was going through that experience, that's really what led me to the Curious Builder. And then my life just could dramatically change, right? And my career too, based on that knowledge. And so I think it was just all these past experiences sort of led up to what would become Mysa Hus. I took all the things that I'd learned from the Curious Builder in terms of branding, relationships, storytelling, and it came in. So before I even started a house, before I came up with the floor plan, I didn't even look at demographics of what would sell. I met with a brand strategist, and Molly Windmiller's her name, and she had helped me with Curious Builder and Boot Camp and these other things that I'm doing. And I said, Molly, here's what I want to do. I'm a Scandinavian mutt. I've got Lindquist and Lutke's, which is totally Scandinavian names. But I'm German and Swiss and all these other things. And not that it has to identify with a specific country, but like I'm Nordic. Look at me. And so like I love sauna. I love the culture. I love the simplicity. I love nature. I love mountains. I want this to have I was very aware of like branding and storytelling. Like I wanted this house to embody all these natural things that I get energy from. And so she said, tell me what you want. And this next sentence is really all of what happened to Mysa Hus is how I describe this. She said, what do you want this house to feel? I said, I gravitate towards natural sunlight. It's 6 o'clock in the morning. The sun is rising. It's cold. The snowflakes are falling. I have a hot cup of cocoa in my hand or coffee. I've got a wool blanket over me. I'm reading my Bible or a book. I'm looking out and it's just quiet and the snow's just falling. And she's like, that's Mysa Hus. That's what it is. Mm-hmm. And so we didn't know what Mysa meant at that time, but I said, that's what I want this house to feel like. We talked about Maya Angelou's famous quote. My wife uses it all the time. Maya Angelou's going to have to copyright my wife pretty soon about people forget what you say, but they never forget how you made them feel. And our homes have done that for a long time. Mysa Hus is going to do that on a level I can't even imagine.
What's the moment that Mysa Hus brings you back to when you were growing up? Like as you walk through that, so you gave me a tour earlier today, right? And this is why I say you hint at it, because you told this one specific story before. I don't know that it's the why story, but you've told this one specific story before on a different episode. And you told it today as you were giving me the tour. What is the moment that you go back to when you're walking through Mysa Hus?
I don't even know what the story is, actually. I'm curious what you think it is. If I was to think, I've never thought about it in this term before, but right now, we had a cabin in Glacier Park, Montana for 25 years. And the outdoors have been a big part of my life, skiing and hiking and ultra running and all these things. And like when we sat in the front yard at Mysa Hus, I had that cool timber and it has the sign, like a trailhead sign in Europe where you'd have like this wood sign pointing to like, I did it all kilometers because Mysa Hus is, Scandinavian. So I was like, hey, it's 6,300 kilometers to Stockholm, Sweden, or Glacier Park was on there, oddly enough. And then it's in the colors of the Swedish flag. And so for me, I wanted to create I want a home that's urban. I mean, we're in an urban city setting, if you will, a neighborhood, but I wanted a cabin experience. I guess at the end of the day, I wanted that quiet, off the grid, complete detachment from that serenity. It's so hard to get that full peace and quiet where your mind is calm. There's nothing drawing on your time, or that's why that morning is so important to me. In that those quiet moments, Melissa calls them moments of delight. And so I wanted the house to embody all of that. And all the things that we ended up sort of the philosophy of like picking, we didn't stumble into wellness till about 6 months into Mysa Hus. Well, we can talk about that maybe in a little bit. But for me, it was, I wanted, like I was going up to a cabin in northern Minnesota, off the grid, no phones, like just a silent retreat. And family is super important to me. I grew up without a TV. My parents did as well. And until just a year or two ago, we didn't even have one in our home. And now we just do Friday night movie night, which is fine. I only give that up for perspective because the first house I ever built, I forgot to put a TV in it. I almost couldn't sell the house because my lifestyle is not however most people live. I'm sure I have undiagnosed ADHD. I often joke about it. I don't have a TV, not for moral reasons or any of that stuff. Maybe that's how it was a choice for like my parents' generation. But for my generation, I don't like the distractions. I want to read a book. I want to do a puzzle with my kids. I want to play a game of chess. I need that quiet to recharge. And so Mysa Hus is kind of this melting pot of all these different emotions and things that give me so much joy in all these wonderful, because I am the archetype of the home as well. Because as I mentioned, though I haven't mentioned it yet, but like for me, I felt like if I build a house for everybody, I build a house for nobody. And the hardest thing to do is have a blank sheet of paper and say, draw me a house. Oh, it could be everything. It could be a 2-story. It could be a single. It could be. And so I wanted a philosophy that would dictate my selections because I didn't have a client. And I'm certain many builders have built a home for themselves, of course, and that's a very successful tactic. And I am
there's a lot of you in that
huge
house.
amount of me in it, of course. But the philosophy is a different sort of like a more purified version of what I find valuable.
Yeah. So there's the philosophy. You're really great at telling me the philosophy. You're really great at telling me the what. I want to know the why. When you walked through, this is the story, and I didn't want to give it to you, but this is the story because I want you to bring.
How often do people know the why? Do I even know the why?
You do. You do, but I think you. It's like what you said earlier. Sometimes you don't talk it out loud, so you don't realize that's the why. When you walked me through the house earlier today, there was, and you've told this story on a podcast before, but it was the fireplace.
Oh.
It brings you back to that moment that you were passing your dad wood through the window, right? What about that moment was so special to you that you had to recreate that moment in this home?
That's a great point.
This episode is brought to you by Pella Windows and Doors. I've used Pella for 21 years as the exclusive window company on every one of my builds. When people ask me who I trust for windows and doors, it's Pella. Every time. Their craftsmanship, their innovation, the top-tier service make them a no-brainer for any custom home builder or designer who demand the best. Whether you're designing something bold or building something with timeless elegance, Pella has you covered. They're also the only window company that has a lifetime warranty on all of their windows. I've gotten to know all of their people at Pella Corporate as well as locally here at Pella Northland. I'm proud to call them our partners and our friends. Visit Pella.com to learn more and connect with your local reps today. Also, for more information, you can listen to episode 1, where I interview their founders, as well as episode 109, where we talk about the innovation at Pella.
So to frame it for the audience that doesn't know, so when we got into, so the house had multiple levers where it sort of unlocked into new avenues. The wellness, once I stumbled upon like wellness, it's a huge part of my natural personal life. And it wasn't part of Mysa Hus originally. It was about 4 or 5 months into the branding and me talking about it. I iterate out loud. And as I'm getting into it, there was something missing. I felt like there was a burr in the mechanics. There was just something that was just not working. And when we hit wellness, the whole thing unlocked. It was just like yellow brick road all the way. Here we go. And that's really when things started really galvanizing quickly. But the reason I'm bringing it up is Carl, who's the architectural designer on, he's also my neighbor. And Carl's the reason I got into ultra running. And so he was the perfect partner on this project because so much about wellness is our lifestyles. We bike together, we run together. And so he's so talented. And so all these different things are just, it's just like, you can't even make up the story. It just like evolves so that was the way perfectly. And so I could not land the plane on this fireplace. And it was gas or wood. And I must have chosen 5 different wood fireplaces and 5 different gas fireplaces. And when we went into wellness, I thought a lot about what we breathe. And last summer, we had a ton of Canadian smoke fire. And it was like, I was just marveling like, man, what we breathe. I'm amazed at how incredible our lungs are to process all this stuff. And so I was thinking like in a house that is really tight, one of the things that often happens with a wood burning fireplace is they backdraft and you get that black soot on the front. I mean, that's carbon monoxide. That's poison. Like, I don't want that in my air, especially if I'm going to make this house about wellness. I was thinking about it in terms of health. And Carl unlocked this for me. He said, I told him the story that when I was a little kid, we had a home with a wood burning fireplace because my dad is basically unregistered pyro and loves to burn everything. And so every winter he would be outside in a snowmobile suit in this orange sled that would be stacked, 6 feet high and 8 feet long. You'd pull it from the wood pile, and I would be inside. Part of my chores to work with Dad would be I would grab the logs through the window, and then I would put them in the wood box, and I'd sweep up the floor. And it was this. I'm very close to my dad, and I have thousands of stories, but this is one. I don't know why. It was just so clear. And when I told this story to Carl, he looked at me like, can you not hear what you're saying right now? He's like, do you think that wellness might also be more than health? Like wellness might be a state of being. Like wellness might be a memory. Well, and so when he's very philosophical, and sometimes I need to be hit with the philosophical hammer to be like, oh, yeah, okay, this is now the easiest decision I've ever made. It's a wood burner fireplace. Let's go. And that is the story. So I mentioned before, we're going to do like a little audio tour. These little elves are going to be holding these little QR codes, and I'll record a podcast like this with 3 minutes or less, and we're going to have them around the house for these moments of delight so that other people can hear this story, because it takes me sometimes a little time to get into the story. I'll have to truncate it up a little bit. But anyway, so now this house has a place where some other family member can hand wood through the window. They can fill this cool metal lined box and then fill up the wood burner. And there is something deliberate. Starting a wood fire for sure takes longer. But I think that's the point of this house, is to slow people down a little bit.
Why does that matter to you? So I agree with Carl that wellness is definitely more than just health for you. I think it is a state of being. But I'd like to hear more about why. What was it about that moment with your dad that stays in your mind about slowing things down?
Probably because slowing things down is the hardest thing for me to do. This house in this lifestyle is something that I need. You asked me, it actually goes to marriage a little bit. You asked me, I've been married for 13 plus years, and you asked me, what is the secret of marriage? And I stumbled around because I don't know the answer, but just shared a bunch of experiences. But, I'm a better person because of my spouse, 100%. I wonder if she would say the same thing. I don't know. But the point being is like, a lot of the things that now I talk about on the podcast and boot camp and sauna camp and all these things really stem from my relationship with my wife, in the sense that I'm very flexible. Like right now, if you said, hey, let's stop this podcast and come back in an hour, great, no problem, I could roll with it. And so like the laissez-faire works well with my personality and the ad lib version of it. My wife is much more structured. Family time is super important to me as it is to her. And so I've talked about this a lot, so I'll just reiterate real quickly. Like I'm home every day at 5 because we have dinner at 5:30. I don't open up my computer again until I get to the office the next day, usually around 8:30. I think it's unhealthy to constantly be on call to your clients and to your team. I just don't think it's sustainable as a culture, as a society, and for sure myself. So my wife has helped me get quieter. The home, Mysa, sort of embodies some of those principles. Brad Robinson, who we have joint friends with, a year ago at Zion at boot camp, we both joint made a promise that we were going to leave our phones downstairs, so it doesn't even come into our bedroom. I actually had this funny story about Mysa Hus where I wanted to know if I could click a button in like a Faraday cage and lock the house down. And I thought I had just stumbled on like the next $1 billion idea. I thought, this idea, I'm going to patent it. Parents and people across the world are going to want this idea. And, I'm going to make more money with this patent than I could ever make in the home building. Well, it turns out it's a federal offense and it's illegal. You can't do it. We'll save that for another time. But anyway, the point, I was always pursuing this quiet state. And a lot of it is because of my own personality.
Why does that matter to you? Why does it matter to you? I don't want to put words in your mouth, but you love yourself. You love who you are.
Of course.
You don't have an issue with that.
Right.
But you are, because you're so aware, so self-aware, you're chasing the idea of slowing down. Why does that matter to you, though?
Probably because I like to do hard things. I don't run ultra marathon distances because it's easy. I do it because it's a challenge. I sort of like, I don't know. My dad, we have a family quote, and my dad's quote is, and now it's become mine, is we're comfortable being uncomfortable. And more like pain tolerance and like your ability to suffer. Maybe that's masochistic. I have no idea why, but we smile while we're doing it. So I don't know what to do about that. I know that I'm better when I have that time to recharge. It's not easy for me to do it. My favorite quote the last couple of years has been boundaries create freedom. And the point, like, you can't wake up at 4:30 in the morning if you don't go to bed early. It just or you're just going to crack. It's not going to work. And so what is sustainable? And so as I keep getting older and I am around amazing people, or I talk to other people, or I just discover things about myself, like there's freedom in some of those constraints. And so I would love nothing more than to come home and put all of our phones in like a Faraday box and to not touch them again until the next day. I understand that's probably not reasonable to a certain level, but I do think there's a lot of value in it. In the world that keeps getting spinning faster and faster and faster, I don't think it's good. And even if we can handle it and we adapt to it, which we certainly do, we have to take preventative measures to sort of slow life down and enjoy the moment. And if someone was to ask me, how much time do you spend looking in the future? How much time do you spend in the past? And how much do you spend in the present? I spend zero time in the past, like zero. I mentioned like I don't really have regrets. Not that I shouldn't have regrets. I give it I can't do anything about it. So I don't spend any time there. I spend a lot of time in the future. I love dreaming. Airplanes and airports are like one of my favorite places on the planet, because it's like with a credit card and passport, I could go anywhere I want in the world right now. And I like that freedom of like, and I use that as an analogy because I think it's true of life. Like I love the future state. I need help being present. And so I think by getting rid of these distractions, and Mysa Hus sort of it helps people, and I hope helps a family, helps me even in talking about it, do that for myself. Because
when you're present, when you're present in the moment, what happens? What happens to you when you're present?
I slow down. I mean, I stopped writing, I stopped dreaming, I stopped doing to-do lists, I stopped creating new businesses. I can read a book in quiet.
How do you feel though when you slow down like that? How do you feel?
I mean, it's calming. It's very calming. It's kind of like a zen state. Like honestly, probably one of the hardest things for me to do, because I'm so active and I like to move. Like you talked about how when you take your time off, like you like to go wander the forest. This sounds painful to do. I wonder if I could sit like at a place alone for like a day, an hour. I don't know how far I could go. Probably not very long, because it's hard. And so what I've done now is when I run, I don't have music, or sometimes I do, of course, but now I find that it's that free, I get all these ideas. I get very rejuvenated. But I have to put them in place. Otherwise I'll default to, something to distract myself with.
Right. When you were in high school, so you told me about, how old were you when with the fireplace? You were probably what, 8 or 9 years old?
Yeah.
Okay.
About that.
So when you were in high school, what's a core memory you have of you and your dad in high school?
Oh, wow. I remember playing catch we had a little lake, and so we would play catch, and we just, throw the baseball to each other. That's a kind of I don't know, I just remember him squatting with a catcher's mitt and me pitching. I never even got into baseball. That's just the first thing I thought of was that. We spent a lot of time hiking and skiing in the mountains together. That was something. His dad's wood shop. Actually, this story is really funny. One of my core memories, mainly because it's so ridiculous. Actually, this actually sums up our whole family personality very succinctly. So my dad was a builder and had a wood shop in his basement. And Don, I can't remember his last name. Back then, a custom home was a round top window.
Okay.
That was it. Because you couldn't build round top windows back then. They had to be done by hand. So if you built with David Williams, you got a round top window, and that was like, whoa, custom. So anyway, we had this cool wood shop, and my dad's always putzing around building stuff. He's he'll tell you that he's not a great woodworker, but he's constantly woodworking, which is what anyone who's good at something says. Anyway, he said that Don taught him how to think. And he my dad was a pilot, and he loved thinking about stuff and like how to get from A to B. So anyway, we go down in this wood shop. I think I was 6 or 7. So my sister's 2 years younger, so she's 5 or whatever. And Dad gets 3 cigarettes, one for him, one for me, and one for Ashley. Gets them all lit up and puts them all in her mouth. And we're like, what is this? And he's like, these are called cigarettes. And he's like, take a deep breath and swallow. My sister pukes. I start hacking. We've never touched a cigarette since. The point is like, why I'm saying this story, that's a core memory because I've told it many times. I think it's really funny. I joke with Dad now that he either would have had chain smokers as kids or like what happened. But like, I think sometimes our family just does things, not for shock reaction. Like there's a pure innocent and a pure joy of just like, most people would say that's a terrible idea. I'm not telling anyone listening to this podcast, like go light it up for your kids. It has crossed my mind whether to try it on my own kids though, although I don't think I would. But I think trying stuff and failing, like just being creative, just going for it. I think our dad taught us to just be really, don't worry about what other people think about what you do. Like if you're happy with it, if you have peace with it and it brings you joy, that's probably a noble pursuit.
So that was 6, 7. That was when you were 6 or
Yeah.
7. But tell me about high
you're
school.
making reference to 6, 7.
No. No. Tell me about high school, though. Tell me about high school. What do you remember about home and family life in high school?
I remember, and this is viewed now as a business owner and a dad, I remember calling my mom and dad and thanking them for just an amazing childhood. You don't realize, you just think your childhood is your childhood and everyone has the same childhood because you don't know any different.
Right.
And then as you get older, you're like, wow, I had a very special childhood. And it's actually informed how my wife and I want to raise our kids in 2 things. If we can do just 2 things for our children, we will both feel like we've been successful parents. One is that they feel loved and that we love them. Number 2 is that we instill confidence in them. And where that came from is like my wife says, you are just unnaturally happy. I think it's your Scandinavian upbringing. But like my mom is very optimistic, and she's probably even more cheery and rosy than I am. And my dad is very optimistic as well. My wife, her confidence, she struggles with her confidence. And part of it, I'm sure, was her upbringing. Part of it is self-doubt, like any of us may or may not experience. And so she feels that a lot of my happiness is tied to my confidence. And confidence can be tricky. I mean, you can put yourself in dangerous situations by being overconfident. So you got to temper everything. But I just thought, as a parent, could you teach your kid that you love them and that they feel loved in that confidence? And so I felt like that was my entire childhood. And I've had a number of my friends that have, over the years, and family that are just like, you don't know any different. And they would just say, do you realize what a special gift you have? And you're like, no, I have no idea, because these are my only parents I've ever had. And so I've thanked them as I've gotten older countless times. And I bring that up. It's like, it's the little things. I used to play chess with my dad. We'd play one game and I'd beat him, and I'd say, you want to play again? He said, no, one is enough. And so we would play chess together. They were always at every sporting event we ever did. So I don't ever remember my dad working, which is really interesting. That was before emails and cell phones and all those things. But so we had an office on our property, and Dad would meet people. It must have, like, we always had dinner as a family. And then it must have been when we were doing homework or whatever, he must have gone, 100 yards to the office and met people at night, because that's what you did back in the 80s and 90s.
Yeah.
But I remember my dad always being available, and always, when we had a question, he would always stop. And he always had time for us. But we just spent so much time together. I mean, again, hiking and skiing and vacations and things together. He always invited us into whatever he was doing. I think that was something I've learned deeply is, even now when my kids come, like, I've had May interview me on podcasts. Oh, wow. And so I don't know if anyone wants to listen to that, but I sure enjoy it. And so I think I don't need them to grow up super fast, but they can be part of my life. Like, explain to them, I've kind of came up with this idea that whatever my kids ask me, I will tell them the honest answer, because my parents did the same thing. And so actually the other day, we had quite the conversation on the way. They were sick, so they got to come to the office and work. They actually, I think, sometimes fake being sick, because I have a bunch of Legos here, and my boys love doing Legos. And so whatever my dad did, he included us. So I guess I don't have a specific memory that comes to mind right now. But I remember, I guess now that I think about training, he wanted to climb Mount McKinley up in Alaska. I think it's called Denali now. And he trained. I remember him in the middle of winter having a green backpack on, and he'd load it with 2 40-pound salt bags, like you put in your water softener. And he'd just walk around our lake for like hours. And so again, he was demonstrating to us like commitment, objective. So even at a young age, we saw it being modeled of just like, if you want to do something, the only person holding you accountable is really yourself. And so like, if you hold yourself accountable, you can do anything you want. Yeah. And so
so far we've talked about marriage, we've talked about your upbringing, we talked about this core memory with the fireplace. Do you, as you're creating Mysa Hus, and these philosophies are coming out as people are interviewing you and asking you questions on like what matters to you, wellness is a state of being, but is it also for you what love and confidence represents that you got from your childhood? Because you mentioned how much you've appreciated how your parents raised you, but a lot of how they raised you was in that home, was the time that they spent with you. Do you feel like you're trying to recreate in some ways your childhood?
In the home itself.
In the home itself.
Yeah, I think for sure. I think a big part of just me, because obviously as I've aged, and I guess I'm at 45. I guess I'm in middle-aged adulthood. I still feel like a 9-year-old kid with a bouncy ball at a park, just sort of throwing it to myself against the wall. But Yeah, I mean, everywhere I look in the house, I mean, I even mentioned to you the reason that that dining room nook is the way it is because I took myself and like, okay, if I'm up early in the morning, reading the paper, having coffee, I want to sit in like a breakfast nook. I've always wanted a breakfast nook in my own home, and we didn't have enough room in this house, and I didn't want the house. I wanted the house. The other thing is, I didn't want the house to get too big. You know, we live in 3,000 square feet. I'm a family of 5. Our culture, like more. And so it was a very deliberate choice to actually put some constraints on Mysa Hus. It's odd enough that the cost goes up when you go smaller sometimes because now you're like, oh, now I'm going to put more detail into it. But anyway, there's little pieces in the house that have a story. You know, that was another one of them. And I remember maybe that I didn't think about it till just now, but like, you know, every morning when I'd wake up, my dad was a very early riser. And so, you know, I always remember him reading his Bible by the lake windows with a light on when I'd come down in the morning for school. And that was just a childhood memory I always saw. I guess it'd be fun to ask him, like, what age did he start doing that? Because now that I go to bed so early, I wake up. It's like every year I wake up a half hour earlier. Like 2 years ago, I used to wake up at like 5:30. Right now, I'm waking up at like 4:23. Not by choice. It just keeps on. At some point, I'm going to be going to bed at like 5 p.m. and waking up at 1 a.m. I don't know what's wrong with me, but I love those early, quiet morning hours. Mainly because it doesn't take away from kid time. So like all the training I do for running or with the guys that I train with, it's like, you know, I'm home at 7 because every day I wake up the kids, brush their teeth, get them ready for school. So they don't really know that I'm training. It doesn't really impact them at all. Take them to school. I pick them up from school. And so, yeah, I don't know if I answered the question, but there you go.
Well, I asked you if you're trying to recreate your childhood, but what I'm hearing is like these moments mattered to you. These were moments that you paid attention to, whether it was handing your father wood, whether it was watching him down in the wood shop basement, whether it was him waking up early to read his Bible. And you're recreating these moments in Mysa Hus. We're getting to the core of why. Why does all of that matter to you? Like you said earlier, slowing down, but what is it that matters to you so much about slowing down that it has become a philosophy of the Mysa Hus house or the Mysa Hus project?
I think it just represents, the house represents all these things that have meant a lot to me. I mean, essentially, Mysa could be Mark. I mean, now that I think about it, when you say it that way, I mean, like literally the house is me, or what I aspire to be, because I'm obviously not all those things all the time, but I would like to. It's aspirational. And I think home builders in general are aspirational. So are designers. Like we are creating spaces that we aspire to help people live a better, whatever their values are. We hope to create a space that they can have their best lives, their best memories. And so we're very aware of that. I think I hope we are as home builders, as remodelers. We affect people's homes. It's super intimate. You know, a lot of times on the podcast we talk about the things we struggle with, meaning like, you know, difficult homeowners or difficult situations or just liquidity and finances and all these things that every entrepreneur has to deal with. But the flip side of it is home building is so emotional in a good way. And like, you know, I've seen people cry. I've seen people, you know, you walked in, outside of our studio here, I've got, 20 Christmas cards. Half of those cards have pictures of those families in their homes. And it's really, I don't know, a home builder that wouldn't look at a Christmas card if they see that family in the home that they built, wouldn't feel something, in their heart. Like I had a part to play in that family's life. They might never know it. The kids might, sometimes they have kids obviously after you have built their homes. And so I don't know, we impact people more profoundly than most industries.
Do you feel like okay, so if you're going to eventually sell this house.
Yes.
Is Mysa Hus making a bigger impact? Not taking anything away from the clients you've already built homes for, but this is your personal thesis of life that is implanted in this home. Do you feel like you're making a bigger impact with Mysa Hus?
Great question. I do like your statement there. That's my personal thesis. It is. I hope someone else also wants that personal thesis, right? Because there's always the danger that you built something that somebody doesn't want. I mean, if you go too extreme, what if you had a room with no bedrooms? We're like, we believe in communal sleep. Like, I mean, honestly, you go to like Native American culture, they had a giant teepee and you all slept, in fact, this is actually funny. One of the gentlemen that came on Curious Builder Boot Camp the second time, on the first time when we went to Zion, we were as a glamping situation. We had all these individual tents. He thought we were all going to sleep in one tent together. I'm like, I'm impressed you paid $5,000 to come to this, thinking we were all going to bunk up with each other, buddy. But I'm saying that is like, I think you still have to be mindful of the market. Like well, I don't feel like historically I've been great at it.
Yeah.
I'm better at creating something that's artistic and an expression that's really unique. And I was so dialed in onto the story because I feel like I don't ever want to talk about price. I don't want to talk about even product, although it sounds like I'm good at talking about those. I want to talk about the story because I feel like the story, the goal is that by sharing so much that's so personal, it's going to latch one of those stories, hopefully put some hooks into your heart. And you're like, I cannot live another day without being in this home and having whatever aspirations that family wants. I do think I'm just a better storyteller today than I was 5 years ago. I'm a better builder today too. That being said, we've done really good work for a long period of time. So a lot of the things that we're doing in Mysa Hus, we've done for a decade or more. And it's just, I'm better at talking about it now. And so I think the other thing too is it's sort of freeing. The idea was to have the philosophy, the filter of Mysa Hus, and we're still developing. I mean, the other thing is it's still iterating. Literally about every 30 days, I'll get a new idea, and it'll somehow, we're not done iterating on what Mysa Hus is. And that has been why I'm so excited about it, is because when you're with something that's live and evolving and changing, I mean, I joked today when I left, like I patted it like it was a little kid. Like it's literally like watching, a kid like grow and change. And like I look back even a year ago at, Simon, I'm like, wow, has he changed in a year, my middle son? And so
how have you changed since working on Mysa Hus?
Good question. I'm not sure I want to build a house again that doesn't have a story.
We're excited to announce that we're bringing back Sauna Camp 2.0 on March 20th from 2 to 8 p.m. We had this last year. We had 42 owners. This year, we're maxing out the capacity of the camp, which is going to be 60 people. We're going to have a wellness panel with some Everest summiters, as well as some Iron men and women to compete, and all about wellness and how they prioritize their health and wellness, not only in training, but in their lifestyles and in their business. And then we're going to have a 2-hour window of sauna and cold plunging in the lake, and then an amazing wood-fired grill, Mediterranean-style food at the end of that. So if you're interested, please head to curiousbuilder.com. Under retreats, you'll find everything there is about Sauna Camp on March 20th in Minnesota.
I already have my next idea, actually, not surprising. And so I really have enjoyed the journey of creating something that's unique and that has a wonderful story to share. I love collaboration. It's building, any entrepreneur, it feels lonely. And so that's one of the reasons why I gravitated so strongly to the Contractor Coalition Summit and the podcast and all these things that I'm doing now. I just feel like I've sort of just exploded in my trajectory in terms of like what is possible. Because I thought my head was so down. I thought like, hey, I'm in Minnesota. I'm just a little builder, and I am. But like the idea that just a little tiny pebble can have actually a huge ripple effect on a pond. And so I think now as I look up and just sharing our story, sharing what's exciting, to me, it's at the underlying, it's passion. And I think when you just are so passionate about something, how can you not? If you're anybody that's passionate about anything, you'll listen to it. Like when my kids come home and talk about this terribly colored drawing, but they're so worked up about it, like you've got my attention. Like you didn't hit one single line, buddy, but darn it if you didn't color that thing like, nobody's business. And so like, I think we just really like it when people are passionate. We're drawn to it.
I want to push you on that though, because Contractor Coalition Summit, Curious Builder, Mysa Hus, all of this came after Burnout.
100%.
But Mysa Hus is a whole beast in itself.
100%.
Right? You hadn't built a spec home in 16 years.
Yeah. Part of it was fear. Part of it would have been.
But now you're doing it.
Yeah.
Right? What changed? And that's why I want to push you on what changed in you, because I think all of this was iteration, but from the beginning of Mysa Hus, when it was just an idea, not even a name, just an idea, to today, where it sits today, I believe you've changed. But what is it about Mysa Hus that changed you?
I would say that because of the failure of 2008, and I would tell you that I'm not afraid of failure, but maybe latently it was down there that you're afraid that by doing a spec home, by doing something like that people are going to judge or look at. It doesn't really usually bother me, but I'm sure it's in there somewhere. Like, obviously, it's like you want people, I keep relating it to like a child because I don't know what other analogy it is, but it's like, obviously you love it when people love your kids.
Yeah.
And if someone doesn't love your kids, you're probably not going to like them very much. And so like, you know, but some people have a deep fear that they don't want to put themselves out there because if what they put out there, people don't like it. Like, I will love this house no matter if no one likes it. I'll figure it out, right? Like, I like it. So I don't need other people's approval. I just need my own. But I think a part of it is I want to know how good of a home can I build? How creative can I get when there aren't guardrails? And there are always guardrails, budget usually being one of them. But I have to give a huge shout out to, you know, I have a business partner on this project, a silent partner. And I sat down with him the other day and I thanked him. And I said, I am best when I am not burdened by how am I going to make payroll and how I'm going to pay for this and that. You have given me freedom to be the most creative version of myself. And that is a gift I don't think you realized I didn't even know I was getting it at that time. And maybe he's like, oh man, shoot, I really wish I hadn't done that either. I don't know. The proof will be in the pudding. It'll all depend on what happens at the end because I want to do this again and again and again and again. But each one will be different. And like right now, I could not, if you told me, Mark, go build a house for yourself, I don't think I could. I am so emotionally into this home. I mean, I dream about it. That's pretty wild.
I believe you.
And so I'm just so tunnel vision on it. But because I have such clarity of purpose on this house, it has really allowed me to just, no one else could really, at least in our market, I'm not saying other people don't have creative ideas or anything like that's way too pretentious, but like, I just don't know anyone that does this. I mean, Nick Schiffer's the only one other person that I know that is either this crazy or this passionate about his project. And he has totally different reasons for doing his project. We talked a little bit about that at Contractor Coalition. Mine are totally different than Nick's, but there's a lot of similarities too. And so I have absolutely enjoyed this ride so much, and we still have 5-6 months to go before we're done.
Yeah. You said two things I want to go deeper into. You said clarity of purpose, and then you said freedom to be the best version of yourself. I want you to think about this. I'm gonna give you time to think about this, but I want to know, are you essentially trying to give that to someone else, the freedom to be the best version of themselves? Because a lot of what you put into this home is slowing down, cutting off technology, even though you can't do that anymore. But, you know, like, you have created this philosophy, this thesis that you believe in, and all of it has led to you having this freedom to be the best version of yourself. Reason I'm going down that rabbit hole, while we were talking, I pulled out these Jenga pieces. In July 2023, I made the very conscious decision to go all in on the design industry. Now, I had, at that point in 2023, I had created a docuseries for Luann Nigera, who is a podcast host in the design industry. Very popular podcast called A Well-Designed Business. And I saw this business opportunity, to niche down into interior design and the design market. So interior designer, architect, builder. From July to November 2023, I had reached out to over 100 interior designers, only interior designers. Not one person said yes to the new offer.
Really?
Not one person. And in November, I was headed to Luann. She has this event called Luann Live. 200 interior designers show up in the room. And I was asked to speak on burnout. So in 2020, I woke up one morning, opened my eyes, but I couldn't physically move my body. No matter what I did for 2 hours, my body would not move. I ended up later being diagnosed with burnout, depression, anxiety. All of it with burnout, right? And I realized, like, at that point, I'd been in business 14 years, and I just wasn't happy. I wasn't happy. I was working too hard. During the pandemic, I continued to work. I wasn't one of those people that slowed down. And so I was looking for something different. And so when I found the design industry, I got really excited because I'm like, I'm working with Luann Nigera. Everybody loved her docuseries. She had a big docuseries premiere.
So even after hers aired, you had 150 people that you interviewed?
After hers aired, yes, 100 people that I asked.
What?
Yes. Some of them I had already known that had said to me, hey, I want to work with you. But then when I came back, gave them the offer, and everyone in their own way said no. So I go to Luann Live, and I'm speaking. But when I get there on the first day, What I wasn't prepared for is many of the people that told me no were there. So I'm walking through the hallways and I'm saying hi to people and I'm like, that name looks familiar, that face looks familiar. And I realized this is this person that's told me no. Rejection was easy on a Zoom call, right? But now having to face them and so many in the same room, I was just like, what is this? So I almost didn't speak at the event. But I have this in my phone, I have this folder, I have an iPhone, and I have a photo album that's a confidence folder. So it's anytime someone has given me a compliment, testimonial, that kind of thing, just to remind me on those days I have imposter syndrome, which one of those days was that day. I read through that, I pray, and then I remind myself of my purpose, to lead and empower entrepreneurs to have relentless courage. This is a moment I need courage, but I only need to show up for the one that needs it most in the room. So I do that, go to speak on the second day, and I do this exercise called the Jenga exercise, which is why I pulled out these pieces. The Jenga exercise is, you know, when you play Jenga, you take out the piece, you put it back on top.
Played it last night with my kids.
Perfect. Well, the way that I do the Jenga exercise, because in Burnout I had to learn this, I pull out the piece, but I never put it back on top. So on the pieces are words that are written like, stop creating a new website, or start maintaining control, or start speaking, start sharing your story, stop hustling. There's all these starts and stops that we need to do. The point of the Jenga exercise is that when you pull out the piece, don't put it back on top. And so I pull out, I think when I do the exercise, I pull out 12 to 14 pieces. There's 54 pieces in a Jenga set, but you pull out 12 to 14, and what you realize, the structure still holds. You didn't need all the pieces. There's 3 last pieces that I leave to the end. There's core values, courage, and I forget the third C. There's 3 C's. But courage, I always leave last for the person that I feel like in the room needs it most. Always changes who that person is, different what I'm looking for, but I'm just intuitive about, okay, who needs this in the room? Well, while I'm giving this talk at Luann Live, there's an interior designer in the room sitting towards the front who is crying uncontrollably the whole time I'm giving this speech. And normally I throw the pieces. So I'll ask people, hey, who needs to, start maintaining control or start speaking or start sharing their story? And so they'll raise their hand and I throw the piece. It's very interactive and engaging. It keeps people interested, right?
Few black eyes.
A few black eyes, yes.
Hey, you in the back.
So this lady that I see crying, I don't want to draw attention to it. So I hold on to this last piece called courage. And at the end, when everyone stands up and claps or whatever, and it's the end of my speech, I go walk over quietly and hand it to her, hand her the courage piece. And so about 5-10 minutes later, she comes up to me and she's like, I don't know how you know I needed this, but I needed this so much right now. Life has been crazy, and I don't feel like I can continue on, but this is the piece I needed to continue on. I was so worried about people saying yes to this new offer that I have. I was so worried about, can this business even continue? And what I discovered more was purpose. Another iteration, another example, another piece of evidence that who you are matters more than what you do, right? For me, that changed everything in how I approached this docuseries for the design industry. Because when you look at a Brad Levitt docuseries, or you look at Luann Nigeri, you look at any of the other interior designers that I've worked with, I am trying to show who they are more than what they do. And more than that, it gives me an opportunity to fulfill my purpose. My purpose is to lead and empower entrepreneurs to have relentless courage. A lot of what happens behind the scenes, it's not really about the docuseries. It's about the one-on-one conversations where they do need to talk about who they are, where they do need to talk about, I don't know where I'm going next. I don't know how to lead my team right now. There's all these deeper conversations that people aren't having. We're surrounded by people, but striving for real conversation. And that's what I bring, is that challenge of having a real conversation that you know you need to have. It's much of the way that I'm challenging you now to like go deeper, like why? This freedom to be the best version of myself, is that what you're really trying to give people? Because I know what I'm trying to give people is that same feeling that I once had that, when I burnt out in 2020, I lost myself because my identity, I started this business at 17. By the time I burnt out, I was 32, I think it was. My identity was in this business. It's all I knew. And I had to learn that who you are is not the work that you do. It's not about that. It's about the being. I'm listening to you talk about all these things, and I feel like with the missing piece from Mysa Hus, although you share it, and like I said, you share it in tangents, but it's not a full, no, this is what Mysa Hus is. This is why you should care. I know the tactical why. I know like you have created this beautiful home, and so many of what you're doing in there is very creative, but I think there's an emotional why. And the emotional why, knowing, having been through the same journey of burnout, is in some ways this gave you new life that you didn't have before. And so like to hear the words of like freedom to be the best version of myself or clarity of purpose, for me it was those same things. And that's why I can understand it. That's why I could care about it more. And that's the pieces I want to push more, because why all of this matters so much. When you go to create the story or even do the audios like you talked about doing where people walk through the house, passion is important, but the passion comes from a different place when you understand this, the depth of what it really means, because then you know the gift that you're giving someone else.
I mean, it's interesting to hear you talk about it like that. I can't decide if I'm not self-aware enough to understand what it is, or it's not even on my radar, because I think sometimes having the outside perspective of what it is that drives you, because you're right in the sense of being burned out. So for sure being burned out of just build or business in general. Mm-hmm. Contractor Coalition, the Curious Builder sort of reignited that. So that was whole. Yep. But, you know, I mentioned earlier, I think I'm a marketer who just happens to build, right? So like Mysa Hus made me fall in love with building again. And so from that standpoint, you're absolutely right, because now I take that creativity, you know, to my other clients. Mm-hmm. And I've always loved people and I love them being happy. But like, I like empowering the team. Like, I don't need to be a part of every decision. They're better at it anyway. Yeah. This home was more about just reigniting my love for the craft itself, because I had, after doing it for 2 decades, mm-hmm. you just are kind of like, okay, another piece of wood floor. It's the same, cabinets. And it doesn't mean that they weren't good. It doesn't mean that, but there was more. There's more that you could do. And I think the story and the pursuit of it, it really just gives you, again, you said it already, clarity of purpose. It really made things clear. I'll be very interested to know, like a year from now or 2 years from now, if I do a spec home, like, can I even do a Mysa Hus 2.0? Or will everything, because I do have multiple plans for this. Like, we copyrighted it. Like, there's a couple other builders in the country that want to build from a business standpoint. I absolutely want to pursue that.
And that's why I think it's so much bigger, because you already had the Curious Builder, which you kind of created a big brand around. But this is the first time you created a big brand around a home that you've built, right?
Correct.
To the point that you are licensing it potentially to other builders so that they can build homes, just like the Mysa Hus philosophy, not even just like the Mysa Hus house, but the philosophy of it.
I'm less concerned about the actual house, because it could be a different builder, a different architect, a different designer. I would like the philosophy, which I'm still figuring out. Like, honestly, I feel it's not hypocritical, but I guess we use the term imposter syndrome all the time. Like, I speak about it on the fringes because I still don't know what it is yet. I'm still discovering. Like when you're pushing, and I love it, but like I'm not sure. Like we're squeezing this lemon, and I'm not sure what else is left in there because I'm still figuring out what it is. Yeah. And so like this other builder that we're going to do a partnership deal on, I said I need to get through the home because I want it to be of value to you. Yeah. But I honestly don't even know what it is yet. I haven't had time to stop and reflect. I'm still in it. Like, I'm at mile 30 of a 50-mile race. Like, I've got a long ways to go yet. And while we're downhill sledding at this point, there's still a lot going on in the home, and it's still evolving. And the one thing that I love about building homes is that the end is always as aspirational as it is in the beginning. There's nothing quite like reality. Yep. And when the house is actually done, there's going to be a moment where I'm sure I'll go have coffee there, because like, well, I can't. I joked like I can't afford my own work. Like I'm gonna want to go stay at the house. Like I'm gonna do a dinner event for like 10 people where it's cooked. Like I want to have. And I want to do it also for myself. Like I want to hire a chef. I want to have like a sommelier. Like I want to have, and then, maybe 10, 12 people that I think might want to buy the house. Like do a very unique curated dinner party where someone serves you in potentially your future home. But like, I want to be a guest in my own home because I want to see what it feels like. I don't know, until you live in a house and feel like it. I'm excited for that moment. Or sitting in the backyard. I mentioned this old grandpa thing I had at boot camp is like, I want to sit like in the backyard and have hundreds of people at the house, like just going, wow, look at this, and just like mingling, or just maybe they don't even know what they're doing. There will be a deep satisfaction in seeing people experience the home or touching it and feeling it. That will be a wonderful thing to witness for me.
Have you tried doing that already? Meaning, because a thought I had as you were walking me through the house today is like, have you sat back to appreciate where you even are right now in building this
definitely
home?
Not.
Because this was just an idea. And we're both faith-based men, right? This was a lot for two other families that it didn't work out for whatever reason.
Oh, sure. I see what you mean.
Right? This was a lot that two other people looked at and were like, they started the process. You started design work. And then they were like, nope, we changed our mind. And now you've got the lot. And this house is almost done. Like, you're only 5-6 months away. That's not that far away. It'll be here before you know it.
Yeah, my PM would like a few extra months.
But have you sat? So the reason I'm asking that, I actually just had an experience like that. Really felt like an outer body experience. I won't go into the long drawn out story but I created this new docuseries called Breakfast with Jude. And Breakfast with Jude is, I know it now, it is the work I was called to do. Like, it took 20 years to get there, but it was the work I was called to do. The thesis of the show is, or the docuseries is, the messy middle of ambition. So it's much of everything that I've kind of talked about, but I bring people in the design industry around a table to talk about this messy middle that they're going through. So I recorded the first episode in Connecticut, January 10th. Amazing. That's kind of
year?
Of this year.
So this is brand new.
Very brand new. I'll tell you the short version of the origin story. So origin story is that I went through a bad breakup in January. January 5th, my girlfriend broke up with me. January 7th is when I did the podcast with Brad, and then Brad ended up becoming a client, right? And in the design industry itself, my business kind of took off. And I couldn't reason in my mind, why was I going through this bad breakup, but the business is doing really well, right? And I'm celebrating and I'm happy that the business is doing well, but personal life doesn't feel that great. And there's this messy middle of all of that. There's other things that happen throughout the year, but October, I go to an event with one of my clients. So, and this is in California, the first time that I have 5 of my clients in the same room. And I'm like, oh, this will be nice. Let me put something special together for these 5 clients. The week before this, I did some filming, and I asked my behind-the-scenes camera guy, Slav, that we talked about earlier. I asked him, hey, how do you think that went? This was a week before this actual breakfast. And he was like, I think it was good. We got some good content, but you seem more quiet than usual. And I didn't feel that great about it because I'm like, we're shooting behind the scenes, and that means I didn't really show up. The week later, when I go to this client event, that actual client walks up to me and he's like, are you okay? You seem more quiet than usual. The breakfast, so he says that on a Tuesday, the breakfast is on a Wednesday, and I realize I need to snap out of whatever this is that I'm feeling because now people are noticing. And so at the table the next morning, I asked just one simple question. What was the hardest part of 2025 and how did you get through it? What I didn't know, now I'm asking that question for me. I'm asking that question because I need help and I don't know how to ask for help. What I didn't realize is everyone at that table needed to answer that question. And by the end of it, we were having such deep conversations 2 hours later that they all at the end were like, we needed this. And there's two people specifically at the table who are best friends and didn't know what the other person was going through at the time. But it's all this messy middle of ambition. There's one that's a designer that leads a team of 16. There's another one that leads a team of 14. Like, there's all these big companies and they have big responsibilities. And one of the clients at that table texted me later on that day and she was like, I see a new series in the works, Breakfast with Jude. That was October 8th, I think. I ran with it January 10th. We had already filmed the first episode. But last week in Vegas, I went to Vegas Market and then I decided to have this Breakfast with Jude. Recreating this first time that it ever happened is what essentially I was. So the same 5 people who were at the table in California, I had them in Vegas. And before I could even get the episode started, I don't know what happened specifically, there were moments that sparked this, but I go to sit down at the table of this diner and something shifts. And I start to have this outer body experience where not only do I feel like this is the work I'm called to do, I almost don't believe it's happening. And I can't fathom, why am I sitting here? Like, this is really happening, that I've created this atmosphere in this room for people to come and have these deep conversations. And so my hands start shaking, and I can't get words out, and I'm like, I'm just gonna have to tell them what's happening. And so I start to tell them what's happening, right? And for some reason I start crying uncontrollably. And I don't know what's happening, because I had already recorded the first episode. I had already gone through the feeling of, oh, this is the work I'm called to do. But then that happens. And so that's why I'm asking you, like, have you slowed down long enough? Because I know for me, I didn't slow down long enough to appreciate, no, this is the work you're called to do, and it's really happening. Like, you're on episode 2, and there will be more, and it's really happening where for most of my life, I love the work I do. I know I'm great at storytelling. I know I'm great at helping people tell their stories. But if I'm honest, I wasn't always happy with the business. I was always ambitious, chasing after the next thing. And for once, this was like, I was truly happy with it. And it was something I avoided for a very long time. I had spent time as a guest on a podcast. I'd been on 150 podcasts as a guest. And people had always asked me, well, why don't you start your own podcast? Why don't you? I just didn't want to do the work. But I know one thing that happened in Vegas, which was part of like why I had this reaction, is that we went to the diner the day before just to look at it. I had never seen it before. And I wanted to make sure it looks good and that my team knew what they needed to do with setting up lights and cameras. And as we're doing that, I'm just standing outside on the phone, and this homeless guy walks up to me and he asks me for money, but I don't carry cash. So I was like, look, if you want food, I can go and get you food, but I don't have any cash on me. He's like, no, I want food. So we end up not actually going to the diner, but across the street to this taco shop. It's 9 o'clock in the morning, but he wants to go to a taco shop. I start talking to him, and he's telling me his story. His name is Brandon. And he's from Chicago, makes his way to Vegas. He's not married, doesn't have any kids. But there's one piece that he tells me that really messes with my mind. He tells me he's 37 years old. I'm 37. And in that moment, I feel like I'm looking at myself. And I'm thinking to myself, we weren't even supposed to be at this diner the day before. What are the odds that I run into this homeless guy? And running into him, I'm asking him like his story, and this is his story. And I realize this whole time, everything that I've been doing is so much bigger than me. That what I needed to let go of is being selfish and thinking, oh, I don't want to do this podcasting docuseries thing for myself. But people need it, right? When we slow down to appreciate, and not even appreciate all the time, but just to connect the dots of like where you are right now, where you've been, there's so many things that had to go right for that to happen. And sometimes wrong, like going through burnout. But like, can you appreciate the journey of that? Can you see, like, stop and look and realize Mysa Hus was nothing 2 years ago. It's just an idea, just a thought. It wasn't even a name 2 years ago. But now it's almost done. The fireplace that you once dreamed of, that you experienced as a kid, will be in this house. The thing that was complicated to create is created in this house. All the crazy ideas you've had over time is in this house. I'm walking you through all of that because what I think people need to experience is that. I think the details is great, and that will have its time. But what people need to experience is the heart of what you've created. And that's why I'm asking you, like, have you slowed down to think through all of that? Because passion is important, but I think what I connect with is Mark. And knowing, like, because I had very much somewhat of the same upbringing. My dad was in construction as well. He didn't own his own business, but he was in construction as well. And what I appreciate about the way that I was raised is what my parents did for me when they didn't have anything. And so, again, I'm going through this whole entire journey with you because I want you, road mapping is about alignment, but it's also about how do you, when you get that alignment, how do you then share that with other people so that this purpose, this clarity of purpose, this freedom that you've now experienced actually gets implanted into someone else. And now you get to give that gift to someone else. That gift of freedom, of clarity, of like, yes, I went through this long 20-year journey, but now I'm really happy in what I'm able to do. So much that it's going to be a national thing done for other people, even if you haven't figured out completely, but there are other people who are going to create the Mysa Hus projects based on your philosophy. That was just one idea.
Yeah, I mean, to answer your question, I definitely have not got to the point where I've stopped and considered, and I probably won't till I'm done. Mm-hmm. And then I'll have to make a mental note to stop and reflect on it. And I think, as I mentioned before, the hardest thing for me as a personality thing to do is to stop it and to reflect. It's just I'm in motion. That's where I'm my best. Okay. But it's also where I'm most comfortable. So I'm fine with doing uncomfortable things. And so sort of being pushed to reflect on it. I had two stories that come to mind. One was, I can relate to your story very well because I feel that I was able to achieve that through the Curious Builder brand. Specifically, oddly enough, each iteration leads to another one that is like, so boot camp, we just had it. I received the nicest compliment I've ever received from a person, maybe except for my mom and dad, which I couldn't actually tell you what it was, but I mean, I've got to believe they had one. But this person wrote about the Jeffersonian dinners that we talked about and seeing people and how they connected. And he said, whatever led you to be who you are and to do all of these things that you're doing through the Curious Builder brand, specifically getting people together and creating these environments where people can be this really, he's like, I believe that's a God-given ability that only you have, and you should realize how special that is. And I remember seeing this comment, and I'll tell you offline who this person was because you know him, and I was just like, that is like the nicest thing anyone has ever said. It was like so deep. And yeah, I have not experienced that in the form of Mark Williams Custom Homes or Mysa Hus yet. Hearing you talk about it, that also was never my aspiration. Like neither one. I had no idea what I was doing. It's kind of like the dog chasing a ball and finding five more. It's like I'm just chasing the ball in front of me. I'm not that smart. And so it's like seeing how it impacts people. I mean, I'm aware of my own, for lack of a better word, charisma and passion. Like I know I can get people excited about things because when I'm excited, you're going to get excited. I'm really good at eliciting emotion, but it's real. It's authentic. Like I honestly feel that way. And so I do get a lot of laughs, and I like to make people laugh. So, my design team is very well aware of my passion and my ideas. And sometimes it can be fatiguing. I mean, honestly, I'm a lot for a lot of people, including people on my team. And so it'll be very interesting to see when we're done what they experience out of it. And Melissa Oland, the interior designer on it, I chose her very specifically for this. I've known her. She used to be a wedding photographer, and she took pictures of May, my oldest, when she was a baby. And so we have kind of a shared story. But like hearing compliments or observations from her is just really interesting because she's known me for quite a while. And so it'll be interesting to see how it affects people. And some people are probably like, whether they listen to this far into the episode or not, they're probably with us. But the point is like some people, this will go over their head. Like it's just a house, you do, but some people will be like, wow, we can feel. Right. And this house is for those people. Yeah. And honestly, I hope everyone enjoys it. Like there's really, I have no judgment, and I do 100% agree with you. And it's a fine line between pouring yourself out into something and wanting people to partake of it, but not having your self-identity in it, that if it's not accepted, you collapse. Right. And thankfully, back to my mom and dad, love and confidence. Like I don't really lack either one of those departments. I will be fine if people don't love this house. Right. Like obviously I want people to love it, but I'm not doing it for them. Right. I'm doing it because it's a manifestation of myself and all the creativity, and I'm offering it to the world and saying, hey, this is kind of fun. I'm kind of creating this. It's like, what's that, Harold and the Purple Crayon? Remember, did you ever read that as a kid? No. It's a very famous kid's book. Okay. I'll get it and mail it to you. And but I don't know why I'm thinking about this. But basically, whatever he can create on the crayon becomes a real thing. So he creates a spaceship, and then he flies away. And so it's like, anyway, this creativity thing. Yeah. So anyway, I'm curious to see where it goes, and even the next ideas. And like, I won't stop innovating because this process has been what I enjoy. And I'm sure the end destination, I've learned so much. But in the partnerships, seeing we have 35 brand partners on this deal. I never in my wildest dreams, I learned all that through the Curious Builder. So again, all of these things, I can see now why when you're older and you're more experienced as a business owner, like why a lot of success comes in those years, because you're using all of these things that have happened to you in your life to create something. You kind of have to go through that failure cycle that losers are winners. I mean, you have to do a lot of losing in order to kind of get, this great idea.
Yeah, but you get there.
Yeah,
eventually you get there. I want to, so normally this is 3 hours. So we're not going to do 3 hours, but I do want to wrap up the point of like why all of this matters, right? So normally when I work with a client, we do road mapping. We will go through 3 different phases. Dramatic clarity, which is where we spent a lot of time today. Dramatic clarity, dramatic demonstration, and then dramatic leverage.
Did you come up with all these words, or is this like a philosophy that you follow? Like you have a very like well thought out, like I love this.
Well, I've been doing it 20 years, right?
Okay.
And so dramatic demonstration is what before Breakfast with Jude, is what I called my life's work. There are these 5 dramatic demonstrations that I look for in every story. So there's behind the scenes, live illustration, like Jenga pieces, social proof, transformation, and unique mechanism. I won't go into the detail of each, but with dramatic demonstration being the most important piece, then you have dramatic clarity, which comes before that, and then dramatic leverage. All of this is a roadmap to getting you to eventually what your end goal is. Your end goal might be with Mysa Hus to actually sell the house, right, for someone to buy it. Or it might not even be that. It might be these 32 partners, brand partners that you've had with Mysa Hus. You want to make sure they get seen, right, and get acknowledged for helping you bring this project to life. There's different reasons, but that's why we go through road mapping. There's a question you asked me back at Contractor Coalition, because you've seen me do these docuseries, and you were like, okay, but what do I do with this? Like, I get the idea, package the story, tell the story, go deep into it, but what do I do with it? Every client I work with has a different reason for doing it. You and I know Jen Davidson, who Jen Davidson wanted to connect with more architects and builders by telling her story. That's why she has a 6-part docuseries. Brad was different. Brad wants to get to higher level homes that he's producing for clients. He works on these really creative, sometimes massive projects, but it takes a long time to get there, to even get the client to trust you. That's what this docuseries does. He sends that docuseries to clients to leads before they ever become a client, right? And then there's another interior designer that I'm working with right now. She used to work, her name is Lauren. She used to work at a plumbing showroom before she became an interior designer. And she worked there for 6 years, now has run her interior design firm for 13 years. But she wants to get back to creating products for plumbing industry. And now this docuseries is a better introduction to that, to her telling her story of, one, the credibility that she has, but also how she sees these products being created, even though she hasn't created them yet. Everyone has a different purpose. But this docuseries gives a better introduction that opens the door to these opportunities, rather than passion, or rather than you not being able to package this story in a way that makes it compelling to someone. Like, why should I care about this? Like you said, some builders might look at this and think, okay, great, you built a home. Like, you did a spec home. Cool. Whereas others might look at it and think, they might not be thinking about the spec home as much as, like, they might be thinking, I'm going through that journey now where I've kind of feel like I'm not really happy doing this building business. Mysa Hus could give me, or the brand, whatever that brand is, could give me that fire again.
That is definitely something, I didn't think, that's not why I'm doing it, but that is definitely one of the top things that I hope happens. That Mysa Hus is me, because it's so, we've already just spent the last hour and a half talking about all these things that, I'm not saying no one could have created Mysa Hus, because Mysa Hus is just a word, but like how I've done it, how I've created it. I'm unique. I'm myself. So no one else could have done it exactly how I did it. Doesn't mean someone else can't do a Mysa Hus however they want, in whatever brand they create. Or I love the idea that maybe people could use this to get the best version out of whatever they're excited about, whatever they're passionate about. And I hope that by having you on talking about, I didn't know much about road mapping, and I'm just so intrigued by, I'm always curious about how this works. I'm like, what do I do with it? Because like what I really need is an endless budget of money just to do all these amazing things, because like, I just love the journey. I love learning from my peers, from you, from other people that I'm just like, I don't know what they do, but I'm guessing people have said this to you. You have a magnetic quiet about you. I'm very loud in people's faces, right? So it's like they hear me coming. I'll be at the airport and be like, oh, we heard Mark, like down the road. But like you have tell me if you've heard this before, but I feel like people are drawn towards you. Do you feel like people like are attracted to you?
Yeah.
And I think if I was to articulate it, I think you have this quiet, confident, very safe, like deep, and your voice is kind of like honey on warm bread, so that helps. But you have this engaging way that people feel very comfortable around you, which obviously makes you perfect at your job because you're asking people a lot of questions.
Yeah, what you said to me before is I could have been a good CIA interrogator.
Oh, you'd be. They would just tell you everything. You wouldn't even have to like drug them up or like waterboard them. You'd just be like, "Tell me your life story."
It's interesting. I never really liked my voice, right? Yet I've realized over time. That's part of the purpose, too, is to lead and empower entrepreneurs to have relentless courage with my voice.
But it's your cadence.
Yeah.
And it's your delivery. And there's so many little intricate things that go in. Some people, you just want to talk to them. You are one of those people, for sure.
Yeah. Thank you for having me on. I want to, like I said, I wanted to make sure to help you with Mysa Hus because I love the idea. I think what's been missing is that emotional why. The why that really draws people into care about it in a way that goes beyond just the project itself. Because I think what you've created is more of a personal thesis than just a home. It is Mark Williams and the way that Mark Williams lives that can go beyond you just being a builder. It goes into Curious Builder. It goes into the Curious Collective as well, right? Or boot camp, right? That for me, the hardest part for some people to understand is not so much, the docuseries doesn't matter as much as like what you do with it after, right? This project that you're working on, it matters, but so what happens after is what matters a lot more, right? Because you will sell the home and you will have a family that lives in there. And it will be because of the philosophy that you've created. That wood-burning fireplace is not in many homes. It's not done in many homes today. But you were like, no, this had to happen. This is what I wanted. And your team helped make it happen.
It'll be interesting, actually. Tell me if you think what your thoughts on this are. When you train for, 2 years ago, I trained for a 50-mile race. And so it was my Misogi. It's a Japanese term for like your one thing. Mm-hmm. And my 2 one things last year was Mysa Hus and the 100-miler. That's a separate conversation. But the 50-miler, I trained like 8 months for it. And I did the race. It was great. And I enjoyed the journey. So it wasn't just about the destination. I enjoyed the journey. But for the next 2 or 3 months, it was like this hollow feeling. Like I accomplished my goal, but I didn't realize that there was this huge letdown. And when I trained for the 100 last year, I didn't have a letdown. Oddly enough, I actually didn't complete my goal either, because at mile 66, actually the town we were finishing in was burning. So it was out in Oregon. The wildfires went from 800 acres to 18,000 acres.
Wow. So
they pulled us off the race at 10:30 at night. But I had zero regret, zero remorse. So there was no letdown after that race. But I had also learned that lesson that I wasn't, if you focus too much on one thing, when you achieve that one thing, you drop up too much of your self-identity in it.
Right.
And there's a cliff. It's not sustainable.
Yeah.
I haven't thought about it until you just said this. When Mysa Hus sells, I predict that there'll be, I'll try to combat that, but I bet there's going to be part of me that's like, now what?
But how could I already have the now?
Yeah, maybe. We'll see.
Because you've made it this brand that goes beyond just the project that sits here in Minnesota. I think you already have that. And I think that's also why it drives you so much more, is because you realize, I not only get to complete this, but I get to continue this. This is not just a moment.
I mean, we are actually right now in the middle, speaking of Molly Windmuller, she told me to, maybe this, I'm better at talking than I'm at writing. I think she told me to write a bunch of Mysa Hus stuff down. Maybe this will qualify Molly. I'll send you this. But I want a soft pivot, Mark Williams Custom Homes, so that basically all the homes that we build going forward really are around wellness as well. They don't all have to be me. I don't know yet on the brand iteration of like how to, that's why I need a brand strategist to help me sort of work out that road mapping of like, now my marketing director, Leah, had an interesting comment yesterday. We were in a meeting downstairs and she said, I think that Mysa Hus will be more successful than Mark Williams Custom Homes. And I think you can sell Mysa Hus and what you're doing with it, where Mark Williams, I don't think you can, which is, I've often said that, like, I have a job, not a business. Like Brad has a business, right? He's he's much better at scale, and it's not something I've been good at. I need to now, I got to wake up and figure out a way to make my business so it is sellable. But she's probably not wrong that now if I have kind of this guiding principle around Mysa Hus, can I kind of do this soft pivot? I mean, who knows? Maybe Mysa Hus is what maybe there is no Mark Williams Custom Homes in 5 years from now. Maybe Mysa Hus is just what I am. I have no idea. I mean, who knows what the future will hold? Or maybe it'll be the next deal I'm holding up my sleeve. Maybe it'll be that one. I don't know.
Well, I'm excited to see it because what you've done with Mysa Hus is it's inspiring. It's inspiring because even seeing the presentation at Contractor Coalition Summit, like it really was, although it's been iterations, it's a really well thought out idea. Like people have had to pull it out of you, but
Yeah,
it's really well thought out. And you were intentional about, no, this is going to be a brand. Like you started with a brand strategist before you ever actually built the home or even did the design plans for it. You were like, no, this is going to be a brand. So it's inspiring to watch what you've been doing. 45 White Oak is the same thing, right? With what Nick has done, and it hasn't been done in this industry. And now you guys are doing it, and that's inspiring to watch.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. And kudos to people that can help, even you doing this interview, like pulling it out because it's in you. It's a little bit like doing an interview when I am usually the interviewer when I'm interviewing other people. You want them to give more. Right. I had this like out of body experience where I was sort of appreciating the fact that you're trying to get more out of me, but I didn't know how to get it out of me. And I was like, this is what people feel like when I'm like, give me a little more, give me a little more. Like I don't know what they want.
Right. What you gave me a lot, and I think. Like I said, I want to push you to, there's two things you said that at least stick with me. It's freedom to be the best version of myself and clarity of purpose. As human beings, we search for that. We don't always vocalize that we're searching for, but we search for that freedom to be the best version of ourselves and what that looks like.
One of the questions I mentioned to you at these Jeffersonian talks that we had at boot camp, one of the ones was, what is the thing that you fear the most? And the most common response, there's 3 or 4 people that said this, is that they would fail to reach their full potential. Which kind of speaks to what you're talking about a little bit. I just thought that was interesting that they were aware of that.
Again, that's what we chase after, right? Because what is the point of success if at the end of it, what you didn't matter, and there wasn't any significance behind the work that you did, or significance behind the impact that you made on people? For me, it's been that too. It's going after, am I being the best version of myself? Am I actually executing on my full potential? Am I showing up? My intention this year, as we're recording this, I have 0 goals. My one intention is to show up, to be present. That's it. If I'm present in each moment, because I felt like last year with me in this messy middle, like I just was thinking too much about it. Versus even when I'm sitting with someone thinking too much about it, versus no, I'm sitting across with Mark right now. We're having a conversation. Are you present? Be present. Show up. And I think half the time we aren't as present, and we are afraid of like what could happen 5 years down the road, that we're thinking about that versus sitting here in the moment. And so, yeah, that's why I know that there was something deeper, and that's why I wanted to pull it out of you, because I feel like knowing part of your journey, no, there's something different here. Like this is a different Mark than even 5 years ago, or even 2 years ago before you ever started this. And it's because of this project.
I love that intention. Now it's going to make me think about. Well, I love that because I think that's why we also gravitate towards deep, thoughtful conversations, or we like those really deep ones, because when you're in a really deep conversation, there's no chatter out here.
No,
you're not thinking about what's for lunch or what's next or an email. Like, and because this has been at least for me anyway, like I think for me, it cuts out all the chatter of, let's say, ADHD or all the other things, right? Because you are super focused. I think one of the superpowers of having a lot of, this is probably the hyperactive side of, is that you can, when you are full beams on, like it's a lot of full beams. There's a lot of light coming out. But if you can direct it,
right.
And I think that's what I appreciate about artists like yourself and other people in my life, that you might be a shining bright light, but how can people around you help shape it and direct it? Because otherwise it's just an explosion of light. And that's not that helpful.
Well, hopefully this was helpful.
This was super helpful. Thanks, audience, for tuning in to another episode of The Curious Builder. If you want to find out more about Jude, we'll have everything in the show notes. And thanks for coming on, buddy.
Cool. Thank you. Thank you for having me on.
You're actually the first guest. Well, that's not true. I was going to say the first guest that's flown in. You're definitely the first guest that has flown in, and I picked you up at the airport. I'm taking you back to the airport. There's other people that have flown in, but thank you for making the journey up. In person is always just...
Yeah, it's so much better.
Much better.
Yeah,
it's a lot better.
Thank you for having me on.